Dear students, today we are going to discuss one of the most fundamental and comprehensive questions in IR, a question that has frequently appeared in CSS and PMS examinations. The question is define IR and discuss its scope, nature, and importance. This question is often considered the gateway to the discipline because it introduces us to the very essence of IR. Before study theories such as realism, liberalism, constructivism are concepts like foreign policy, diplomacy, globalization, and international security. We must first understand why IR is, what IR is, what it studies, how broad its scope is, what its nature is, why it has become one of the most important fields of study in the modern world. Think for a moment. Why does a war in Eastern Europe affect wheat prices in Pakistan? Why does an oil crisis in the Middle East increase food prices across the globe? Why does a pandemic originating in one country disrupt education, trade, tourism, and healthcare worldwide? Similarly, why do climate change, cyber attacks, terrorism, artificial intelligence concern every nation regardless of its geographical location? The answer is simple. The world has become increasingly interconnected, and the discipline that studies these complex interactions is IR. As former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan rightly observed, arguments between nations are far less important than cooperation among them. This quotation reminds us that while conflict remains a part of international politics, cooperation has become equally essential in addressing global challenges. The first requirement of the question is to define IR. In simple words, IR is the systematic study of interconnections among states and other international actors in political, economic, strategic, legal, social, cultural, and environmental spheres. It seeks to explain how countries cooperate, compete, negotiate, resolve conflicts, and pursue their national interests within the international system. Different scholars have defined IR from different perspectives. Hence, J. Morgenthau, the leading exponent of classical realism, viewed IR primarily as a struggle for power among nations. According to Morgenthau, states seek to maximize their power and protect their national interests in an anarchic international system. In contrast, Palmer and Perkins, whose definition is frequently quoted in CSS examinations, defined IR as the study of the world community in transition. This definition emphasizes that IR is not confined to state interactions alone, but it studies the continuously evolving international community. Similarly, Quincy Wright defined IR as the relations among groups of major importance in the life of the world at any period of history. This broader definition recognizes the roles of states, international organizations, multinational corporations, and non state actors. From these definitions, we can conclude that IR is a dynamic, interdisciplinary, and evolving field that studies the interactions among various actors at the global level. The second part of the question requires us to discuss the nature of IR. Nature refers to the essential characteristics of the discipline. International relations is dynamic. Unlike static subjects, IR constantly evolves. The international system changes with technological innovations, shifting power balances, ideological transformations, and emerging global challenges. For instance, the discipline once focused primarily on wars and diplomacy, whereas today it also studies cybersecurity, climate change, artificial intelligence, global health, migration, and digital governance. IR is interdisciplinary, as IR does not function in isolation. It draws knowledge from political science, economics, history, geography, sociology, law, psychology, environmental studies, and strategic studies. For example, understanding Russia-Ukraine conflict requires historical knowledge, geographical understanding, economic analysis, legal principles, and strategic thinking simultaneously. IR is both theoretical and practical. Is it develops theories to explain international behavior while simultaneously helping governments formulate foreign policy, negotiate treaties, resolve conflicts, and participate in international organizations. Thus, theory and practice complement one another in IR. IR is both conflictual and cooperative as it involves competition, power struggles, and conflicts. How, however, it also promotes diplomacy, negotiations, regional cooperation, peacekeeping, humanitarian assistance, and international development. The coexistence of conflict and cooperation defines the true nature of IR. IR is state centric but increasingly inclusive. Traditionally, sovereign states were considered the principal actors in international politics. However, contemporary IR also recognizes the growing influence of international organizations, multinational corporations, NGOs, media, terrorist organizations, and even influential individuals. Therefore, the discipline has expanded beyond its traditional boundaries. So far as the scope of IR is concerned, it refers to the range of subjects and issues studied by the discipline. Over the past century, the scope of IR has expanded enormously. And IR examines power politics, alliances, rivalries, diplomacy, negotiations, and international conflicts among states. For example, strategic competition between US and China illustrates contemporary power politics. Every state formulates a foreign policy to protect its national interests. So, IR studies how foreign policies are formulated, implemented, influenced by domestic and international factors. Pakistan's relations with China, United States, Gulf countries, and neighboring states provide practical example of foreign policy in action. The discipline studies the structure, functions, achievements, limitations of international organizations. Institutions such as UN, IMF, World Bank, WTO, WHO have become indispensable components of global governance. International law regulates relations among states by establishing legal norms concerning diplomacy, treaties, maritime affairs, human rights, environmental protection, and international conflict. Although enforcement remains challenging, international law contributes significantly to global order. So, studying international law is also within the scope of the IR. Modern international relations recognize that economics and politics are inseparable. International trade, globalization, foreign investment, sanctions, economic cooperation, regional integration, and financial institutions constitute major areas of study. CPEC is an excellent example of how economic influences international politics. Understanding the causes of war and exploring mechanisms for conflict resolution remain central concerns of IR. Peacekeeping, mediation, confidence building measures, CBMs, collective security, and arms control are extensively studied. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 demonstrated how diplomacy prevented a potential nuclear catastrophe. The discipline also examines military strategy, nuclear deterrence, arms races, terrorism, cybersecurity, maritime security, and emerging security threats. The concept of security has expanded from territorial defense to include human, economic, environmental, food, health, and cybersecurity. The scope of IR now includes climate change, artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, international migration, human rights, sustainable development, energy security, food security, pandemics, space diplomacy. These issues illustrate how the discipline continuously adapts to changing global realities. Having understood the definition, nature, scope, let's now discuss why IR has become one of the most important academic disciplines. First, IR enables us to understand international political developments and changing power dynamics. Second, it helps policymakers formulate effective foreign policies and safeguard national interest. Third, it promotes international peace by encouraging diplomacy, negotiations, and peaceful conflict resolution. Fourth, it facilitates international cooperation in addressing transnational challenges such as climate change, terrorism, cybercrime, and pandemics. Fifth, it contributes to economic development by promoting international trade, investment, and regional connectivity. Sixth, it enhances understanding of globalization and the growing interdependence among nations. Seventh, it strengthens diplomacy by providing the theoretical and practical foundation for negotiations and treaty making. Finally, IR prepares future diplomats, civil servants, military officers, researchers, journalists, policymakers to operate effectively in an increasingly interconnected world. As John F. Kennedy wisely remarked, our problems are man made, therefore, they can be solved by men. This quotation highlights the significance of dialogue, cooperation, informed policymaking, the core concerns of IR. Despite its immense significance, IR faces certain limitations. Traditional approaches have often been criticized for being excessively state centric and Western oriented. Contemporary international politics increasingly involves non state actors, digital technologies, environmental challenges, and global governance issues that cannot be fully explained by conventional theories alone. However, the discipline has evolved remarkably. New approaches such as constructivism, feminism, critical theory, green theory, post-colonialism have broadened the analytical framework of IR, making it more relevant to contemporary global realities. Thus, IR continues to adopt in response to the changing international environment. Dear students, to conclude, IR is a dynamic and interdisciplinary field that studies the interactions among states and other international actors in an increasingly interconnected world. Its nature reflects both conflict and cooperation. Its scope extends from diplomacy and foreign policy to international law, economic security, globalization, and emerging global issues, and its importance lies in helping humanity understand, manage, and improve international interactions in pursuit of peace, stability, prosperity, and sustainable development. In today's world, no nation can remain isolated. Political decisions, economic crisis, technological innovations, and environmental challenges transcend national boundaries. Therefore, the study of IR has become indispensable not only for diplomats and policymakers, but also for scholars, civil servants, and informed citizens. The renowned American statesman Henry Kissinger aptly summarized the essence of IR when he observed, no foreign policy, no matter how ingenious, has any chance of success if it is born in the minds of a few and carried in the hearts of none. His statement reminds us that effective international relations require not only strategic thinking but also public understanding, cooperation, and informed decision making. The take home for my students is whenever the examiner asks, define IR and discuss its scope, nature, and importance. Structure your answer logically. Begin with scholarly definitions, then explain the nature, what IR is, followed by its scope, what IR studies, and finally discuss its importance, why IR matters. Support your arguments with relevant examples, scholarly quotations, and contemporary developments. Conclude with a balanced analytical perspective that reflects the dynamic and evolving character of IR. This systematic approach is precisely what CSS and PMS examiners expect in a high scoring answer. Thank you very much.